Rick, great question. It's good to be here.
Joining us now is a guy who knows real estate from the bottom up. Investor, made millions of dollars understanding market trends. I want to tackle two things with you, Jason. First is there a looming crisis? Number two, what will be the big trend that comes out of this?
Rick, great question. It's good to be here. The question when it comes to real estate is what type of real estate and where. There are three basic types of real estate markets in the entire world: linear, cyclical, and hybrid markets. The cyclical markets, meaning the expensive markets around the country, South Florida, the west coast of the United States, the expensive northeastern markets, they are in for trouble, especially if they are high density markets.
Well, this is my very first Jason Hartman conference. I've been listening to his podcasts and I have been learning a lot there, but already in the past couple hours I've learned about what more to look for on pro formas. I've already learned quite a bit that I didn't know. And I'm looking forward to learning so much more the rest of this conference so that I can make better investments and make better choices in my investments.
Hi, I'm Jason Hartman, and I want to talk to you about some of the core teachings that have been very popular that I've been talking to the marketplace about for the past 14 years or so. My first set of core content is called the 10 Commandments of Successful Investing. And I created these so that there could be a core outline that you could really quantify and understand. If you understand these 10 commandments as an investor, you will do pretty well. It's not everything, but it's certainly a very, very good foundation. Then several years later, about 10 years ago, I did a second 10 commandments. So there were 20 at that time. And let's talk about one or two of them today for just a few moments. The first one sounds obvious, but let's unpack it a little bit. It is, thou shalt become educated. Thou shalt become educated. You know, education is obviously important. Nobody would deny that. But here's the thing. Education needs to be, number one, it needs to be practical and it needs to be actionable. Number two, it should be either very inexpensive or free. It's an amazing time to be alive, as I always say. And in the world today, information is plentiful and it's usually free. You know, there's an old saying, information wants to be free. Maybe you've heard that. And when it comes to learning how to be a good investor, you do not have to pay someone a fortune to buy their course or get their coaching program. Maybe you pay a little modest amount for good education of someone you already follow and know and like their teachings, and that's fine. But don't pay a lot. So again, practical and actionable, and free or cheap, one or the other. The second of the 10 commandments I want to talk about today is thou shalt have a team, a professional team. Now, you've probably heard people say this or suggest this in one form or another, and certainly having a team of people to help you do anything is beneficial in life, no question about it. But you want to have a team that is actually doing it. I remember one time I was being pitched for about an hour and 15 minutes or so on some guru's coaching program, and this was kind of funny. I asked him during the call. I said, you know, are you a real estate investor? He was pitching a real estate investing program, and I said, are you a real estate investor? You know, how many properties do you own? How much experience do you have? And he, as my potential coach, says to me, hey, look, you know, Tiger Woods has a coach and he's the world's best golfer. But here's the difference. And I replied with this. I said, look, I agree with you. Everybody needs a coach, even Tiger Woods. But the difference is Tiger Woods' coach has actually played golf. That's a big difference, right? So the person that is mentoring you or coaching you or the person you're following and consuming their intellectual property, their content should have actually played the game, right? Played the game. All right, everybody. I hope you can hear me. We are live. Carrie, how are you?
Hey, Jason. Good. How are you?
Good, good. It's good to have you on. We've got one of our dear clients waiting, and she will be on in a moment here. Hi, Kristin. I see you in there. She's waving at me. So first off, want to just talk about a couple of things here. Amazing things going on in the economy and the market. I was talking on the podcast about a couple of charts. One that showed new home inventory and another one that showed new home sales. And it was absolutely mind-boggling how we have just a monumental inventory shortage, an incredible inventory shortage out there. And Carrie, tell us kind of what the vibe is out there in the marketplace. You're one of our investment counselors. You've been with us, what, about 5 years, maybe 5?
I think I had my 6-year anniversary just about.
Happy anniversary. Sorry, I missed it. I feel guilty.
No flowers, no nothing.
I know. Terrible. But lots of money.
Yeah. That makes up for it.
Yeah. What's the vibe out there in the marketplace in terms of inventory and so forth? We've been complaining that there's been an inventory shortage for years. And I was thinking that one of the possible good benefits of the current situation with the pandemic and so forth would be that there would be more inventory. But the opposite has happened, hasn't it?
Right. Well, what we're seeing a lot of is, back in March and April, the courts were shut down, and even though foreclosures were still occurring, our local market specialist couldn't buy those properties anymore. They were on hold. They were slim pickings because there's no access to buy anything in the price point of $60,000 to $150,000. So that's slowly coming around. You might see a little bit more of those types of properties coming in the fall. But right now, if you see one of those properties on our site in that price point, it's gone in a second.
It is gone in a second. It's amazing. We just had we had some really good new inventory in a couple of different Alabama cities, and one of the builders that we worked with there, a hedge fund came in and bought 53 of their properties. So boom, institutional investor just wiped out the inventory, very, very quickly. And you know what? I've got a, it's like this. There's my sound effect machine. That was not the exact sound effect I was looking for, though, to describe that concept. But let's look at a little inventory before we bring Kristin on. She is here with us, and that's one of our clients, so we can't wait to hear from her. I think the last time I saw her was at our Profits in Paradise event in Hawaii. Mm-hmm. It's been a while, definitely. But let me go ahead and just pull this up on the screen for everybody. Now, this is a property in Talladega, so we're talking about Alabama, and so that will coincide with what we're talking about. Let me see if I can get the share to work okay here. And there we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. Now, what I did is I cut this sheet in half so I could blow up the pieces so we could look at it more closely. But this is an example of a $119,000 119.9 property. These are the kind of properties that represent bread and butter necessity housing, the housing that everybody needs. And, I was the first one out there to predict this mass migration out of high density environments to low density environments. And it is very, very much coming true. As soon as some of the lockdowns started to lift, we just saw this mass migration out of the cities. The vacancy rate in places like New York, San Francisco, downtown LA, even downtown San Diego. I don't think anybody would call San Diego a city necessarily, right? But all over the country and really all over the world, to a lesser extent around the world, because they don't have the suburban markets we do in the US, people are flocking to suburban markets. So these nice necessity properties, you catch people moving up or down the economic ladder, and that is a very good place to be. For the last 16 years, these are the types of properties I've been recommending to my clients, coming from an environment where years before that, I owned a brokerage in Orange County, California, a very high-end area, selling properties in Irvine and Newport Beach that were, multi-million dollar beautiful properties. And this is the complete opposite, right? But they make great investments. So Carrie, what I'll do is I'll just kind of split this sheet in half to blow it up so people can see it better on their screen. So here's the top half. And when I split it, it gets a little bit blurry, but we'll just rattle off some of the numbers for you. Carrie, do you want to go through some of this for us?
Sure. So Talladega has been an excellent market for us. Local market specialists there are just on top of things. Your management is right on par. So highly recommend it for being a new construction and under 120,000. You can't beat that. So 119.9, your gross rent is monthly will be around $995. It's a good almost 1% rent to value ratio. Your property taxes, this will be the lowest state you'll have property taxes in. So I talked to several clients who come from Texas to Alabama, and they are just shocked and just love the difference.
Right, but I will tell you, in Texas's defense, and we've helped clients buy hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of properties in major Texas cities, and we would love to be recommending Texas properties, but they've mostly gotten too expensive to where they just don't make sense anymore from a numbers perspective. And one of the, if you followed my work for the last 16 years, I have something I call the 10 commandments of successful investing. And commandment number 5 is thou shalt not gamble. In other words, the property must make sense the day you buy it, from day one, or you don't buy it. And so we like to get somewhere close to that 1% rent to value ratio. And in Texas, it's just very, very hard to do. In Alabama, you can't even quite do it. But you're not bad. You're very close here. What's the other thing I want to say about that? Oh, but the nice thing about Texas is it is no state income taxes. So you are able as a landlord to pass some of that through to the tenant in terms of higher rents. But again, those property taxes do hit you pretty hard in Texas. I agree.
Right. Well, we do a lot of due diligence and trying to onboard new local market specialists. And whenever we plug the numbers for Texas, you're in the negative from day one. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
we used to be able to make it work, but folks, Texas is just become mostly, in most Texas markets, in the major markets. Of course, you can buy, C and D class properties almost anywhere and get them to make sense on paper. But as we have found, and many investors have found over the years, the cheap house is largely a myth. Okay, you have a lot of collection problems, a lot of difficulties. I'm not saying you can't make money in it. People make money in lots of different aspects of real estate, but it definitely requires a different type of investor, a different type of patience level, and a different mentality for those kinds of lower end properties, really boots on the ground. Now, when I say lower end, many people would consider $119,000 to be very low end, but I'm talking about the C and D class properties that sell for under $60,000 in many markets around the country, and just very hard to actually collect your rent. Looks good on paper, looks great on paper, but in practice, in life, there's a big difference between theory and practice sometimes. So good. Go ahead. So this has got all the expenses. And Carrie, maybe we ought to just talk about the assumptions before we dive into more of this pro forma. And we'll have another property or two throughout today's broadcast. But let's look at the assumptions for a moment.
Yeah, so your assumptions, so the expenses that you're going to have, of course, the fixed ones, your taxes and insurance and your property management fee, that will automatically be taken out. But then your maintenance and your vacancy, those will be variables. We account for 1 month out of the year that you take and set aside that amount of money in case your property were to go vacant at any time.
So that equals 1 month per year is an 8% vacancy rate. No property is full all the time. You might have it be vacant once for 2 months, but then it's rented for 2 years. So that's average of 1 month per year vacancy.
Right,
so, good.
Right.
Yep.
This is new construction, so you're going to have lower maintenance that we say take that 3% of every monthly cash flow and set it aside in the chance that you might have maintenance. Now, this property comes with builder's warranty, so odds are you're not going to have much maintenance in the first few years at all.
Yep, good stuff. So the new property is really easy. So 3% of the income, gross income, is considered to be maintenance expense, 8% management fee, 8% vacancy rate, 6% appreciation on this pro forma. Now, income property is a multi-dimensional asset class. And because you're earning your return on investment in so many ways, it's not one-dimensional like precious metals, cryptocurrency, or a non-dividend paying stock, right? That's one-dimensional. The whole game is buy low, sell high, right? Now, if it's a dividend paying stock, it's buy low, sell high, get dividends in between, right? And so that would be like positive cash flow on your rental. But income property offers leverage, tax benefits, my trademark concept of inflation-induced debt destruction. And with these multi-dimensional forms of income, just go back to this for a second on the, whoops, that's a different property. On the pro forma, here, this pro forma only shows, if you can see my mouse down here, I know this is small, but I'll just read it to you. It says the positive cash flow is projected at $222 per month. And you're investing with 25% down, your total investment here with closing costs is about $35,000, okay? So you might be thinking, well, that only represents, and my mouse is moving now to the financial indicators, an 8% cash on cash return. But because income property is a multi-dimensional asset class, in other words, earning return on investment from many sources, think of it like an iceberg. A lot of that iceberg is under the water, right? A lot of these returns, people don't necessarily see them right away. We have a lot of investors that have worked with us over the years that go and get their taxes done. And they leave their meeting with their accountant and they call us or email us and said, wow, I didn't really think this was as good as it's better than I thought. The properties are, I didn't think it was this good because I saved so much on taxes. And remember, taxes are the single largest expense in anybody's life, okay? So an 8% cash on cash return turns into an overall projected return on investment of 33%. Big difference when you really know how to do the math. And if you want to know more about this, there is a 27-minute video on the front page of my website, jasonhartman.com, that will teach you how to go through and understand every single number on this pro forma and really teach you how to analyze a real estate investment. And once you know how to do that, you just become a much, much better investor, okay? So again, a property that looks, it looks all right. Hey, I'll get a 8% cash on cash return. When you really know how to do the math right, all in 33% return. So multi-dimensional asset class. Good stuff. Good stuff. Now, let me stop this screen share. And before we bring Kristin up, let's just share two of these charts I want to share with you. And these will blow your mind. You ready? You ready, folks? And by the way, please put your questions in here. In fact, maybe while I'm looking for this, we'll take a question. Okay. Let me get to the questions here. And Carrie, you might know some of these people making questions and asking comments. So
Well, this one I like. I like getting comments like this. You're so bright. Keep up the good work. Keep it up. Well, thanks, David. Appreciate that. And here's a comment or a question from Richard. Richard says, Carrie, can you read the questions while I look for the chart?
Crazy times, historic events now and going forward, creative solutions to help sellers, buyers, investors, and renters solve their new challenges will be handsomely rewarded. Banks and government are not the answer, never were.
Yeah, well, that's true, right? Banks and everybody in this country, in this world, just has too much faith in government, too much faith in Wall Street, and it is just totally unwarranted. I mean, folks, at the end of the day, you can only really depend on yourself. Okay, so stop depending on government. This blind faith in government, in Wall Street, in banks. It's just absolutely just a terrible thing. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, you should not have all this faith in government and the banksters. They have been very much proven to be only out for their own self-interest. Goldman Sachs is not going to do you any favors, and neither is Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, for that matter. Everybody is out for their own interest, and that's just the way of the world, sadly. So it is the way it is. Okay, we'll have Kristin come up here in just a moment, and thank you, Richard, for the question. Please just post your questions on YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching us. And someone says they're having trouble accessing the stream on YouTube. Just go to Facebook and you'll get it. So let's see here. Let me share my screen again. These are the charts I mentioned, and they are going to blow your mind. Take a look at this, folks. So the first chart shows U.S. existing home inventory year over year, okay? Starting at 2013 in the blue line here, the light blue line, up to 2020, so current year, which is the dark blue line with the dots in it. And you can see how low the inventory levels are. Okay, so housing inventory very, very constrained. And, people have been complaining about low housing inventory, in 2019, 18, 2017, 2016, 2015, 2014, right? They've been saying there's a housing shortage for years and years and years. But that housing shortage is even worse now. It's even worse. Now, one of the things people always have to understand is that, it depends where. It depends on the price segment of the market. In high-density urban environments, the housing inventory is actually growing. Okay, there's still actually a shortage, but I don't know that there's that much demand there because people cannot socially distance in those environments. They do not feel safe. And then you add to that protests and riots, and it's just yet another reason to leave the cities and, move to the suburbs. And America is a very suburban market. We have the largest suburban real estate market in the entire world. When the baby boomers came back and, right after World War II, and they started their families, there was a huge building boom. And that is what created suburbia. Okay, love it or hate it, doesn't matter. The fact is we have it, and there's a lot of it in the US, and that's largely attributed to the automobile. Americans had a love affair with cars, and that translated into being able to create a lot of housing in suburban markets. Okay, so the second chart, you see that there's a huge inventory shortage, now worse than ever. Okay, the second chart shows existing home sales. Okay, and as you look back through the years down here at the bottom of the chart, right, you can see that home sales, of course, were down for a very brief time when the lockdowns hit, and they really collapsed. But they have come way back to levels higher than the peak in 2016. Okay, that's probably a Trump bump. Okay, love or hate Donald Trump, good for the economy. No one can deny that. At least it would be hard to deny it. And so here we had a huge upsurge in housing sales. Here, pretty good too. Here, and then over here, also pretty good. But now higher than all of those. Okay, so this is causing a major constraint in the market. Okay.
So
Carrie,
Jason,
yeah,
one
go ahead.
question on that. So I have a lot of clients that come up and say, you know what, maybe I should just wait until the fall, wait until 2021 to buy. Will the prices be lower? What can I expect? Do you have any insight on that?
Well, look, at market timing has been proven to be a fool's errand in any asset class, whether it be gold, cryptocurrencies, stocks, real estate. Nobody really seems to win the game long term trying to time the market. There's a theory of, efficient market theory, right? That efficient market hypothesis that you may have heard of, that the market has its own wisdom. Sometimes they refer to it as Mr. Market. Okay, no matter what you think, you can't outthink Mr. Market, right? And look, I don't deny that the economy has major problems, but trying to time the market, nobody long term has actually seen that work. Okay, I would challenge anybody to provide a real long-term example of market timing that actually works through the cycles. Yes, people get lucky here and there, but does it work long term? And one of the things, by the way, Carrie, that people often miss, almost always miss, when they think of market timing, is while they are waiting for this expected correction that may never occur, okay? Because a few months ago, everybody thought the market would be in collapse right now, and the complete opposite has happened. Okay, the market is booming, and inventory is incredibly tight, and prices are rising. But the thing people forget is while they're waiting, I mean, say you wait a year, right? And you go back to this pro forma. Let's get back to it. You go back to this pro forma. Well, that's the other property. You go back to this one, you will lose this 33% projected annual return on investment while waiting. Okay? So remember, there's an opportunity cost to waiting. Waiting has a cost, because what else are you going to be doing with your money? You're probably going to have it sitting in the bank. You might have it in the stock market, and you might lose money in the stock market. I mean, by the way, we wanted to have him today, but Carrie from the other Carrie that you know from the Financial Survival Network is going to join us for a special live stream on Tuesday night. So join us right here Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, and we are going to talk about the history of bubbles. And Carrie, you saw his presentation in Hawaii, and he has updated it. And there's a lot more bubbles now than there were 2 years ago when we were in Hawaii at our Profits in Paradise conference.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
He's good.
So,
well, and it goes back to your poem, your famous poem you read to us after every conference.
Yeah.
You know, what you could have done back then, right. And that's what clients say. Should I do it now or should I wait a year? Well, you're missing out. You have the funds, you're ready to go, buy now, and then next year you get to buy again, and you're already ahead of the game. So
yeah, the market timers could be wrong. Okay, they could be wrong, and you might not only lose the opportunity to get that 33% annualized projection on this pro forma that you're looking at on your screen, but you also it might go the other way. Prices might go up. Interest rates might go up. Remember, a 1% interest rate increase equals about 10% in price. Okay, 1% equals about 10%. So prices go down 10%, but did they go down as a result of lower affordability because there was a 1% increase in interest rates? Well, then you're even. You haven't gained anything. Okay, so something to think about. All right. We've got a whole bunch more questions piling up. Thank you. Keep them coming. We'll get to them, folks. Let's bring Kristin on. Kristin, are you ready? Ready? Okay, let's add Kristin. And there she is. How are you?
Hey, I'm well. How are you?
Good. Kristin, are you located in Portland?
I am in Portland, Oregon.
Fantastic. Okay, good stuff. Well, hey, thanks for coming. I think the last time I saw you was actually at our Hawaii event that I mentioned, right?
I was just reflecting on that. That was such a good trip. All the way around.
That was a lot of fun.
It was great. was the last one.
You know what? That was like a subliminal.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome.
Maybe you missed that, folks. But I just added Kristin City to her name, and I left out the R.
Oh, jeez.
I fixed it though. Oh gosh. Hey, it is Potland.
It is. We talked about that at that conference.
Yeah. Hey, what is going on in Portland? There's a lot of civil unrest there, isn't there?
Don't believe everything you see on the news. Number one. Yes, things are not pleasant, but it's only downtown in this tiny, tiny little section.
Right.
And it's happening after dark. So don't go protest after dark. And like last night, the tear gas started at 11 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they're doing that to disperse the crowds because they're fearful of more looting and more vandalism. And vandalism is very bad. And they can't start to address it and repair things until things calm down a little more.
Yeah. I mean, it is just crazy. These people are destroying these neighborhoods because what business will actually want to come back and open and reopen in the places where they've had this vandalism?
The fortunate thing about Portland is that historically in downtown area, that used to be the center of everything. When I was raised here from, a year old, and that was the gravitational center. All the restaurants, all the boutiques, shops, business center, everything was downtown. And it was a giant magnet. And in the last few decades, what's happened is all of the boutiques and cute little small businesses and very good restaurants have fanned out to the neighborhoods. And there's probably 10 of them now. And a couple of them are farther afield, but there's probably 8 in 15 minutes from downtown in any direction. Mm-hmm. There's a cute neighborhood that is a community in itself that disperses everything from downtown. And downtown's because it's the business center only now, with a couple of malls for tourists.
Yeah, wow.
And but the Pearl is scary because it's right downtown adjacent. But Northwest, which is a little farther north, is still a neighborhood. It's fine. They're not having. I mean, it's close enough. There might be some stuff, but I'm on the other side of the bridge. There's nothing here.
But we were talking the other day. You don't go out much, though, right? I mean, it took you weeks.
I haven't been. During the day, I get in my car because I do everything virtually. I work from home virtually. I exercise here virtually. I have a beautiful yard. I garden, but I do go out a little. It's minimal. I have a tiny circle that I associate with, and we social distance things. But when I go out, it's peaceful. Yeah. There's nothing happening.
Interesting.
What is it about protesters that only do it at night? I mean, do they think they can? It's just better to hide, or it's after work. Oh, they're actually working.
You would be at work today. Everyone's working from home.
Yeah, okay.
Everyone's working virtually. And if they've lost their job, they've got unemployment for the time being. So,
Yeah, there you go. Well, Kristin, thank you so much for coming on with us. Are there any questions or topics you'd like to discuss? I mean, how long ago did you find us? You started listening to the podcast, I guess, right?
Probably 7 years ago.
Great.
And I did about a year and a half of research before I started investing. I chose several markets that I thought were interesting. And that was actually before I found you. So that was 8 years ago. And then I started listening to your podcasts. And then I attended my first couple of Jason Hartman University. And then I think I Meet the Masters. And then it started to change. And I was reading a lot of books. I was reading Kiyosaki books and just really beefing up my knowledge and my foundational base of how I wanted to set up my little world. And that it all came together. And it's been growing steadily. My portfolio is really good.
Awesome. Good for you. Yay.
Yeah. Will you tell Jason where you're at? You're in Florida. You're in Little Rock.
Florida. I'm in Ocala, Florida, and that's going really well. Those are through Jim Shields, which has been awesome. His property manager is very, very good. I'm very happy with them. That was my paradigm, is that I was buying, I'm heavily invested in Memphis. I was in Little Rock. I just let that property go, and now I'm deciding what the next thing is. And where else am I?
So you're in 3 markets, or so you've got Memphis, Tennessee, Ocala, Florida. You had Little Rock, Arkansas, but you sold that one. What else?
So, well, now I'm looking at what's next, and I still like Memphis.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I'm so heavy there, but I'm in various neighborhoods of Memphis. Yeah. I'm in close to downtown, and I'm in the suburbs as well. Excellent. And the nicest suburbs. And so it's nice to keep it all under one roof too. Over the years, I've consolidated my management.
Right. I agree. That's one of the mistakes I've told you before, Kristin, that I've made, is I over diversified. When I started doing this in 2004, it was like my eyes were bigger than my stomach. It's like going to a buffet. I wanted to buy in all these markets. That was a mistake. Don't do what I did. 3 to 5 markets, right? That's it.
What I'm thinking.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's enough diversification.
It's a nice blend. Your Class A, your Class B. It's a nice quality.
Always Class A, Class B. In fact, the reason I got rid of my Arkansas property, that was a whole long stream of, I was supposed to buy 6 houses in Little Rock area, and every single one but one fell out for whatever reason. There were all various reasons. But interestingly, great house, great neighborhood, great numbers initially. First couple of years, great performance. And then something happened. I had a changeover. Well, a really terrible thing happened. This is such a rare occurrence. I did a make ready. New tenant literally moved in, and the day they moved and were bringing their things, someone had broken into the house and stripped every single copper wire out of all.
Oh gosh. So did you file an insurance claim?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the management there, awesome. They took great care of me too.
And did your insurance company pay out?
They paid, but they didn't cover it entirely.
Yeah. So what was their excuse for not covering the whole thing? Folks, as not just real estate investors, but in any area of life, understand that the courthouse records are littered with insurance bad faith cases. This is a thing, okay? It just happens. Insurance bad faith is a thing. They like collecting premiums, but it's not fun to pay them out, right? So they try to weasel out of that obligation sometimes. What was their excuse for not paying the full claim?
It wasn't. I didn't fight it that hard because it had been such an ordeal to get it back and up and running, and it took so long, the little things. And I took a slight hit, and I figured I'll just recover from this. I didn't fight them because it was very significant. I won't give you numbers. It's a little too scary. I won't frighten people out there. And it's not my only bad experience like that. But really what happened to the neighborhood is I would have recovered financially from that in probably a 2-year period. But the neighborhood transitioned from a really solid B neighborhood to almost a D neighborhood.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And it just
that's what I fear is happening in these cities. In Portland, in New York, in where, I mean, there's so many, I can't even list them all. But where these protests are going on, you add COVID to that, and that is not a good recipe. I mean,
no, because we have yet to see what happens with the economy.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what happened. It wasn't that neighborhood because it was a nice neighborhood. I believe what happened was, hi, David.
Yep. He's got a question that relates to our discussion, so I thought I'd bring it up.
And so I think, the migration.
Yeah.
I think that in that particular case, it was too heavily populated with fellow investors, and there were too many rentals. Yeah. And so it drug the neighborhood down. And it happened.
We saw that happen in, that was a common thing in the, 2005 era, where there's too many investors in neighborhoods. That is one of the good thing about established neighborhoods, though. But I don't know. You can get it in new or established. It just depends. It's case by case basis. But let's answer David's question. With migration from high density away from high density populations, what areas do you think will benefit income property investors? Well, ladies, do you have any? Do you want to take that one? I think we already know. I think David knows. I think he's kind of just asking the question for the other viewers. So thank you for that. Thoughts? Carrie?
Go ahead, Kristin.
I was just thinking that I did it sort of instinctually and before COVID, because what ended up happening is inventory was so low in places that I was attracted to and the numbers were running. I started investing in new builds. And those have been very, very good for me. And I like Florida a lot because it's kind of it's a hybrid of suburban, very close proximity to cities.
Mm-hmm.
And everything is very spread out and flat there anyway.
Yep.
Everyone travels for work.
Yeah.
Unless you're right downtown Jacksonville or right downtown Miami, you're going somewhere in your car to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think in various markets, depending on where you are, you will see that.
Yeah, no, Florida, by the way, now that I've been living in Florida for 2 years, I will tell you, Florida is flat as a pancake.
So flat.
The highest elevation, I looked it up, in the entire state of Florida is 340 feet. That's our mountain.
You wear a footing.
Yeah, Florida's great. Florida, we're all throughout. I mean, we're in Southwest Florida. We're in Ocala, Jacksonville. You can't go wrong with Florida.
I'm very happy with my Florida.
Yep. Yeah. We stay away from flood zones. I mean, obviously do your own due diligence.
Yeah,
still.
I did.
Yep.
Ocala's a good one for that.
Florida is good, though. You know, another no income tax, business friendly state where just everybody is moving. I mean, the number of people from high density northeastern markets moving to Florida. I mean, that was already a cliche. You know, we've all seen the Seinfeld episode, Jerry's parents that live in Florida, right? That's just so funny. But now it is just massive. That trend is just become huge. It really has. So here's a question that might relate to that. I'll fix your typo here. What do you think will happen when boomers pass away or downsize in 10 to 20 years? Won't people want to move back to the coast when the deals are there? Well, first of all, the baby boomers they've been downsizing for a while. So that trend is already underway. And I read a stat last week that said 10,000 people turn 65 every day. So there you go. Talk about a burden on the Social Security system. If you think there's going to be any pension there for you, you're crazy. I mean, you may get Social Security in what we call nominal dollars. You'll get the check, but whatever it's worth due to inflation just devastating the value of that check is a whole nother question. And I might show you an interesting chart on that. A real inflation calculator, not the one the government wants you to believe, right? But yeah, I've often thought about, and I've cannot find any stats on this. I've looked for it. I've tried to find data on the amount of inheritance potential from baby boomers to millennials, because the baby boomers are the millennials' parents. Okay, they're the millennials are the echo boomers, right? And so there will be a wealth transfer, certainly. Millennials don't have it as tough as sometimes they like to make it out to be. They just got to wait for their parents to croak. Okay, so terrible, aren't I terrible? But that is true. I mean, it just happens, right? That's the way history works. Now, if the Democrats start running things, which is a possibility, you're likely to see some big estate taxes come back. Okay, and that will really interfere with that wealth transfer from generation to generation. But baby boomers are already downsizing. And by the way, Harry Dent, the economist who's written many, many New York Times bestselling books,
is speaking on Saturday, 6 days from today, at our virtual Meet the Masters event. And I'll put on the ticker at the bottom of the screen the link for that. And by the way, Carrie, don't let me forget, I've got a promo code for anybody who stays to the end for a $100 discount. Okay. We've been selling tickets like crazy for that, and we're going to give that a discount code. So don't let me forget that. Okay. But he predicted that the baby boomers would move out and sell their McMansions in about 2010. He was a little early. A lot of people criticized him, said he was wrong. He's actually not wrong. It did start happening. It just happened a few years after he said. So they became empty nesters. They didn't need that big house. They sold it. And they did put a small glut of those on the market, but that trend will continue as time goes on. And I just don't see much of a market. Like, my mom owns a big house like this. My mom has a 9,800 square foot house she built. It was always her dream to, build a big southern mansion. Okay, so she did it. And I told her, I said, you should sell that place because there's just no market for that after you, right? Like, the millennials, I don't think would be very interested in a house like that, regardless of the money, just because it's not environmental. Right? It costs a lot of environmental tax, not just money, to heat and cool a house like that. And it just doesn't seem like the thing for millennials who consider themselves to be portable people, right? They like being digital nomads. They've got all this technology where they can just move around, right? They don't seem too attached to, material things like that. They're more into experiences. And certainly my generation, Gen X, we're a tiny generation. There's only 46 million of us versus 76 million baby boomers and 80 million millennials, right? So, there's not much of us to suck up that inventory of these big baby boomer houses. So I do think there will be a glut, and I think Harry Dent really will be right about that. And there'll be something of a crash there. But it's not just on the coast, it's everywhere. I mean, baby boomers have big houses all over the country, for when that was the thing to do, to have a big house. But it's just not as much of a thing anymore. So thank you for the question. Metal Bum, I assume you're a precious metals investor or something with a name like that, I'm guessing. I don't know. But good question. Any thoughts, Kristin, Carrie?
Yeah, speaking with clients, I mean, I've talked with several that have wanted to get out of the city already. They've talked about it. I need to get out of New York. I need to get out and just get away from the cluster of the city of it all. And for them personally to move their family, a lot of them are moving to Florida. A lot of them are just getting out and then now wanting to use that money that they profited from their house and buy investment properties in these linear markets.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what they want to do. So here's a question. Do you want to get this one, Carrie?
In the historical time, sellers prefer to sell for cash. Banks are overloaded and take too much extra time. I lost a property that was sold at the same price I offered just because the other interested buyer was paying cash. Disappointing.
Yeah. So what's the question there? Okay.
It's more a comment. She's losing out. We were talking about cash and finance, I think.
Yeah.
Cash seems to be buying up faster than financing, which is true. The non-QM and conventional loans, they've slowly gone away, but they're kind of back for investors. So financing is getting a little bit better.
Carrie, it's a little hard to hear you. If you can move a little closer, that'd be great. But it's not just that, it's the connection also. At least that's what I'm hearing. So what Carrie was saying is that she's finding, I think, more cash buyers because the QM, oh, no, she went away. Okay, she'll be back. Kristin, it's just you and me. Yeah. So she was saying there's more cash buyers because the qualified mortgage, she used the phrase QM, qualified loans, meaning they're agency loans, government-backed or pseudo, through Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, right? Hey, and there's Carrie. She's back with us. I hope your connection's a little better, Carrie.
Testing. Am I good?
So I tried to sort of say what you said for the listeners. So here's Evan, Rabbi Evan, my favorite rabbi, and I'm only 25% Jewish, so I don't have a rabbi. But How long will the move to the suburbs last? Is there a time frame? Will it cause more employers to move to the suburbs? That's an interesting question. Yes, I think it's going to last a long time. I was looking at a YouTube video this morning where a couple of people on RT were talking about how, in 3 years, life's going to go back to normal. And we're all just going to look back on this and say, hey, remember when we had coronavirus and all this, and everybody wants to live in a city, and that's not going to change. I disagree. I think there's going to be a long-term generational PTSD, a post-traumatic stress disorder from this. And even if there's a vaccine for coronavirus, even if that vaccine is safe, which is a whole nother question, and even after you vaccinate 7 billion people, that's going to take a while. Okay. People are still going to be concerned about the next thing. I mean, remember, a few years ago, although it didn't affect our lives very much, it did for some people around the world, though. Remember H1N1? Remember swine flu? Remember bird flu? Remember mad cow disease? Remember all this stuff? This is, the Spanish flu 102 years ago. This stuff happens. The bubonic plague, this is throughout history. We're going to have another thing. Okay, it's and hopefully through this experience, this terrible experience, we've learned how to deal with it a little better. So and there's just a face. By the way, if you are in a group watching us on Facebook, a Facebook group, you have to give permission for Facebook to show your name. And there's a link above the posting if you're in one of the groups watching us. So that's why this just says Facebook user. But thank you, Facebook user. It doesn't say your name unless you give Facebook permission to show your name if you're in a group, different than just being on my Facebook profile or on a Facebook page. Okay. And Kristin, by the way, we don't need to keep you forever. If you're welcome to stay.
You can cut me out if you like. I'm staying, Leanne.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks. Well, we're going to go for 7 hours today. You know that.
Oh, really? Okay.
You may not stay till yeah. Okay, what's this one say, Carrie? You want to grab it?
If you had $1,000 to invest, would you pick new construction or fully revamped turnkey house? Higher cash flow versus turnkey versus appreciation?
That's a good question. I think I'd go with new construction if you can get it. And if you can get a good enough deal. I mean, look, you can definitely buy new construction, right? But will the deal be good? That's another question. But the turnkey properties will have better numbers, the older houses. People tend to favor new. I think, Dan, the real answer to that question is it's a case-by-case basis. That's probably the...
Yeah. I was actually analyzing this with a client the other day. He wanted 2 turnkey properties or 1 new construction property, or revamped, I should say, what he used, revamped turnkey versus new construction.
Right.
The funds for both, and that's a part of it too. What are your funds? What do you have? And he sided with new construction because we broke down the age of the property, the location of those properties. Did it make more sense compared to new construction? And ultimately, just the lower maintenance and the better, I don't want to say better quality home, but the better, the higher end property just made better sense for him. It is a case by case. What are you looking for? I have several clients that just want that, they just want to put 15 to 25,000 into the property, or others they want to put the 40 to 50,000 in. You build your portfolio on what you're looking to achieve and go with that strategy.
Yeah, Carrie, is Dan actually your client?
I want to say, Dan, was it you I was talking with?
Yeah. You don't know because it's Dan S. Yeah. Okay. We don't know. Okay. So here's another question from Dan. For new construction, how long do you hold? 10 years and then 1031 exchange it up for another new construction? Well, Dan, again, that depends. I've profiled on the podcast several times over the years where I've done what I call the 2-for-1 exchange, where I'll have a property and, it might have been new construction when I bought it, maybe not. The one that comes to mind right now is a property I sold in Charlotte, North Carolina. It had appreciated nicely, and I exchanged it for 2 properties in Memphis. I have 4 properties in Memphis now, but at that time, I could go do a 2-for-1, right? Where I'm selling the one property and I get 2 in return. And my cash flow went up about $600 per month. And now I'm more diversified because I have 2 assets instead of just one. And I did that on a 1031 tax deferred exchange. So there's no tax liability. The money transfers right over. And that's one of the other beautiful things about income property. You can trade it for your entire life tax-free. And I want you to think for a moment how significant that is. And by the way, we have a 1031 exchange, a 1031 tax deferred exchange presentation at our upcoming Meet the Masters. The link is at the bottom of the screen right now, scrolling along. That's jasonhartman.com/masters. And again, we'll give you the $100 off promo code for that at the end here, and we'll wrap up probably in, I don't know, 20-ish minutes or so. What was I saying about that? So we'll have a presentation from a 1031 tax deferred exchange expert, but it's great because when you sell a stock or a cryptocurrency or gold or silver or a business, right? Any of those assets, when you sell it, you're going to pay tax. I remember back in 2004 when I was negotiating on the sale to sell my real estate company in Irvine, California to Coldwell Banker, okay? I went and I thought, oh gosh, I'm going to have a huge capital gains problem. And I was used to real estate investing. So I thought, I can do a 1031 exchange, right? I had purchased a couple of businesses before, but I'd never sold one. That was the first time I sold one. And I went to a whole bunch of different high-end tax planners, exit planners, tax advisors, very expensive consultants. And I said, look, can I just reinvest this money and buy another company? And they said, no, you have to pay the tax. That's it. And when you do that, you really, on your overall long-term plan of wealth building, you significantly hurt yourself when you pay the tax because you're reinvesting only post-tax dollars. You have a lot less to reinvest. The government has taken a huge cut out of your proceeds before you get to reinvest. But with income property, on the 1031 tax deferred exchange, you reinvest the entire thing. Okay, so you reinvest those proceeds into the new asset and it's working for you. And I'll give you an example. I did this in a big case. Actually, I've done it twice now in a big case. My client, Stephen and I, we bought a apartment complex in Scottsdale, Arizona. And I think we, this is just from memory, so don't quote me on this. I've explained the whole deal on the podcast a few times, but I think we bought it for about $3.4 million, if I recall correctly, and we sold it for I think $8.2 million, something like that. And we stayed together, and then purchased 2 properties. We purchased another apartment complex in Oklahoma, and another mobile home park with it. Okay, so we did a 2-for-1, right? We sold the one property, got 2. And then we sold one more of those, the Oklahoma property, just several months ago. I talked about that on the podcast. And I think we paid like $2.3 million for that. And by the way, these deals aren't quite as good as they sound because we did do improvements, okay, along the way. So we improved the properties. But they were pretty great, all things considered. And then we sold that one for $5 million, $5 million even, just several months ago. So the 1031 exchange thing really, really is an awesome benefit for real estate investors. It's a great thing. Okay. Okay, we've got a whole bunch of questions coming in here. I wish this app we used made it easier to organize the questions. It is not very good like that. Okay, so
your assistant.
Yeah, exactly. And and Carrie, you can see all those in there, right? So feel free.
I can't.
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay, will there be a replay of this live stream posted on Jason's YouTube channel later? Yes, it'll stay there. Last week, by the way, and that was one of the questions, I didn't put it on the screen, but someone asked, why was it taken down last week? Well, the people that run the world at big tech companies, they don't tell you much, unfortunately, but we think a competitor sabotaged us. We're pretty sure that's what happened last week. So it is up there as a replay, though. You can watch it now from last week as well, okay? And David says, Florida. Okay, so yeah, the live stream will be up there. Here was, oh, what do you consider, here's Metal Bum again. What do you consider suburbia, like Los Angeles or San Diego? Is all residential suburbs and malls. Well, outside of downtown, you are right. That is considered suburbia. I agree with you, even in those bigger cities. But the problem is, it's all too expensive there. So people that live there and already own an expensive property there, and maybe they lived in a higher density part of Los Angeles or San Diego, maybe they moved to a lower density area where they can socially distance and there aren't riots and protests. Sure, but you can't make that make sense as a rental property, because the typical deal of a property in either of those cities is going to be a $600,000 property that rents for about $2,500 per month, less than 0.5 rent to value ratio, versus in one of our markets. And by the way, this is a good segue to share the screen again and show you another property. Okay, so here is another property. And this one is in Ocala, right? Yes, we're talking a lot about Florida, right? Carrie, this wasn't the one we showed last time. No, it wasn't. Okay.
Nope.
So this one, look at the rent to value ratio here. It's not as good as it used to be, folks. Okay, it used to be a lot better years ago. Don't you love it when you get one of these shameless fake gurus that says, there's never been a better time to buy real estate than there is now, right? And actually, there was a better time. 1962. Okay. And then it was better in 2012 also. Okay. And it was better in 1984. But we are here, you know, it's like that saying, what's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time? Today. Okay. And so here's a property in Ocala. Carrie, do you want to take us through this pro forma a little bit? And Kristin, feel free to interrupt us with any questions, comments, thoughts, whatever.
Well, this property might not have the best rent to value ratio, but the higher up you go in the price of the property, the lower your rent to value ratio will be.
That's why LA and San Diego will never work. Okay. But yeah.
And then you'll notice this, also notice the interest rate on the mortgage side. We're quoting a 4.25. You know, you could get better than that even. So right now rates are really good. You can't go wrong with buying or refinancing a property. So yeah, these numbers could be a little bit better depending on your financing.
Yeah, your interest rate probably will be a little bit better than that. I mean, folks, money is basically free today. Mortgage money is basically free. And the people that get ahead in life, the wealthy, they borrow money at super cheap long-term rates. Okay, the rate of real inflation and taxes makes this money free. We are literally in an era of negative interest rates where you are getting paid to borrow money. You're getting paid to borrow. And I've illustrated this in great detail on the Creating Wealth podcast. You know, you can learn more about it there if you don't already follow my work and understand the negative interest rates and getting paid to borrow. But go ahead, Carrie, take us through some of the numbers on this property and highlight it for us.
Okay, so the 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage in Ocala is $165,900. The estimated gross rent is $1,375. And just a side question, Kristin, when you were quoted your rent in Ocala, was that true, or did you actually go higher or lower when you were?
Spot on. And I have 2 duplexes there. All of the duplexes have increased in rents.
They have.
Every time there's a new tenant, they raise the rent.
Okay.
Fantastic. So what kind of rent increases did you see, Kristin?
Yeah.
Not a huge increase, probably 2%. But it's still going up.
Right.
Which is good.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. Rent almost never goes down, folks. I think we all know that. Yeah.
Yep. So the estimated cash flow for monthly cash flow was around $246, and you're around 100% ROI overall on the property.
Yeah. So 30% all in return on investment projection. Okay, and that's right here. I'll blow this up, by the way, and make it a little bigger for you. But the problem is it gets blurrier. I'm not sure which is better. Oh, that's the other That's the other performer. Okay, sorry about that. I'm just going to go back to not blowing it up. So remember, income property is a multidimensional asset class. You earn your return on investment in many ways. So the overall projected return on investment on this property, 30% annually. Now, what I like to say to people is, look, things don't always go as well as planned. I think we all know that in life, as the old saying goes, past performance is no guarantee of the future. Might be better, but it also might be worse, right? But if it only goes half as well as expected, then you'll make 15% return on investment. That is phenomenal in an era where you're getting, virtually zero in the bank, okay? And who knows what in the stock market. And by the way, join us Tuesday night for another live stream right here, same places, where we're going to talk about the history of bubbles. And we're going to take that a lot into today. We're going to talk about the stock market today, the cryptocurrency market today, the precious metals market today, and the real estate market today. Are we in a bubble, right? For you market timer people, you'll really like Tuesday, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific live stream just on bubbles, talking about bubbles, okay? All right, so let's see. Here's a good question. Why do you prefer single family over multifamily homes? Yeah, that's a good question. A common one that Reed is asking here. Well, I think nothing appreciates better than a single family home in terms of appreciation. And also nothing gets you a better quality tenant on average than a single family home. You get a single family home with a family that wants to keep their kids in a school district they're in, and they will fight to stay there. That is a great tenant that can be a good long-term tenant. So single family homes have much less transiency in terms of the tenants. And listen, I own apartments. I think you can make a lot of money in apartments. I've made a lot of money in apartments. I'm just saying that by and large, for most people, you're going to have a much better experience in good quality single family homes in good quality neighborhoods where you're going to get a good quality tenant and you're going to have good appreciation. Okay. I like single family homes the best. I did an entire podcast on this a few years back, maybe in 2015. You can go find it if you go to jasonhartman.com and you type in single family versus apartments or single family versus multifamily. I talked for 45 minutes on that subject. I went down the list and compared the pros and cons of single family versus apartments in many, 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 many ways. Okay. So a lot of info on that, but suffice it to say, I like single family the best. That's my favorite. Okay?
Yeah, our clients will want the buy and hold for the long-term strategy. So an apartment complex or something, you're gonna have higher vacancy, higher turnovers, and most of ours are 9 to 5. I don't know if you're virtual 9 to 5 anymore, but you're a 9 to 5 worker and you just want hands off. So to keep that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 1-bath family in your home, it's just a better route.
Yeah, you're just going to have a better quality experience with single family. I mean, look, if you've got a lot of money to invest and you can buy apartment complexes that are more, typically 75 units or more, that's when you get to the point where the apartment complex will have enough economy of scale to pay for on-site management and an on-site leasing office. Then you can really have a team that pays attention to it. But just remember, with an apartment complex, you're in a business. We're not talking about running a business here. We're talking about investing, meaning a lower level of involvement. You still have to have some involvement for sure, but a lower level, okay? An apartment will have Yelp reviews, okay? That's like a business. You have to be available. You have to be open every day. You have to have a staff. You're managing people. You're dealing with HR issues. It's, we're really geared toward talking about investing, not running a business. But certainly people have made money in that. No question about it. Okay. Okay. Jason, on Tuesday, will you be able to answer my long question that I sent via email about Keith Juro? I think you sent that last week, and I was going to do that one on the podcast. I believe that's the same one. Yes, I will. Brett, I will try to look for that. I think I was going to get to that on the podcast, and I didn't get to it last week. So apologies. I know it was a long question. It was a very thoughtful question. So thank you. Time is limited, and I'm trying to kind of hurry through stuff to give people. Okay, Reed. Awesome. Will do. Thanks. Okay. Thank you, Reed. Okay. Oh, here's one for you, Carrie. How do you like that one?
Do we get to choose our investment counselor? I like your avatar.
Yeah. The answer is, if you are working with one of our investment counselors now and you are unhappy with them, just let us know and you can make a change. You can choose. Okay. But when leads come into our company, they're assigned to investment counselors on a round robin basis. If for some reason, and it's happened a few times over the last 16 years, you're not happy with your counselor, just let me know and we'll make a change for you. Okay. Okay, we got to start wrapping this up, but I want to get to some of these questions. Is a tiny home investment the right strategy to grow wealth? Minimalism lifestyle movement is growing. That's a good question. And Celine, you remind me of who is the famous guru on the Simple She's Awesome, by the way. I love it. You know who I'm talking about? She's got a show and she's written books and
Marie Kondo.
Yes. Your picture looks very aesthetic, like her stuff. So great question. The answer is I don't know. I don't know for sure because it depends, right? I agree with you that minimalism is a trend. I've read that it's not completely working and people are going back to maximalism. I don't know. I think it just is like everything. It's a case by case basis. Is the deal itself good? I think some of those tiny homes, they're kind of cool. I've watched many YouTube videos on them. It's interesting, but will it last? I don't know. I'm not sure. I think it's kind of switching the opposite way right now. I have friends that live in high density cities that, for example, live in New York City that have like 600 square feet in their apartment or condo that they rent, and they're paying $4,000 a month, give or take. And they want to move to suburbia and get a 3-bedroom house with a 2-car garage and 2 bathrooms. So they have room for a home office, a home gym. So I'm not sure. I don't know. Minimalism might be going the other way right now.
Maybe,
at least.
Yeah, beginning stages of your marriage or being single, but having 3 kids, no, I am not living in a tiny home.
Yeah. Yes, and Carrie has 3 kids, so she can speak from experience. Okay, hey, we're going to keep going for a few more minutes here, but I do want to give out that promo code so I don't forget. The link, again, is at the bottom of the screen, jasonhartman.com/masters. And for $100 off, and this, by the way, only lasts for 1 hour after we stop broadcasting. You got to have some urgency in your life, folks. I once purchased a book on procrastination, but I decided I'd read it later. And so far, I haven't read it. Isn't that it? I am not funny, no matter what. There's no humor over here. I'm knowledgeable, but I'm not funny. Anyway, the code is REAL, REAL, like real estate. REAL is the code, not case sensitive. And just go to jasonhartman.com/masters, and you can purchase either of our tickets, the general or the VIP ticket. Our virtual conference is next week, and you'll be offered the opportunity to get the recordings at the end as you register and do the checkout in the cart. That'll be offered to you, and the code is REAL for a one-time $100 off discount for 1 hour after we finish up today. And let's see, here's Muthaya. Choose Carrie, she's the best. Aw.
Hey, Muthaya.
He's one of Carrie's clients, yeah. And here's someone saying, skip my questions. I'm not skipping any questions. How do you know how many questions I've got here? There's so many questions. I'm not skipping your question. Okay, so let me find your question here.
Multi-bond, I love the name.
This app is not very good for organizing the questions. Okay, here you go. Okay, all right, here's a question. Should I jump to a new investment, a $330,000 house that's the price of new construction and turnkey houses here in Bakersfield? I was lucky to pay off my current house in December at the age of 43. Oh, God. You need to start listening to the podcast. Please do. Please do, multi-bond. This is like quadruple 07. I like it. I've seen every James Bond movie. Very cool. First of all, Bakersfield will not work. You cannot get, if you can't get close to $3,300 a month in rent on that house, and I know you can't, that doesn't work. Nothing in California works. We have looked high and low. I grew up in California, lived there almost all of my life, and just nothing works in California. As for paying off your mortgage at age 43, first of all, congratulations, sort of. And the reason I say that is that you should not pay off cheap money like this. You should refinance that house, pull the money out of it. When you can get, look at one of our clients on their own house, their personal residence, they just got a 2.9% mortgage for 3 decades, for 30 years. You are literally getting paid to borrow that money. There are times when you are better off borrowing, and this is one of those times. Do not pay off a super cheap mortgage. Yes, pay off your credit card debt. Pay off your ridiculous student loans. Pay off your car loan. Okay, if it's a high rate, even your car loan isn't a bad deal all the time. Some of those rates are pretty low. Okay, but when you have really cheap money, where you are literally being paid to borrow, all that equity in your house represents an opportunity cost. That's money you can't use for something else. You could get that money out for 2.9% or somewhere around there. You should borrow that money and use that money to invest and grow. Okay. Okay. So here's the rest of your question. New construction or turnkey in a gated community with golf course in the backyard. Well, you're going to have high association fees on that type of property. And that property is too expensive for a rental. Look at one of my old sayings is invest in places that make sense so you can afford to live in places that don't make sense. Okay. You don't want nice properties as your rental properties. You want good properties with good economics. Okay, good rent to value ratios, like the one on the screen. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay, so look at this one. And wait, that one we talked about. Sorry, but that's a good example. And let me get you another one. Okay, it's right here. And this is our last property that we'll show you in Indiana. Okay, now this is a property that makes sense. Okay, this is a good rental property. Okay, that really, really works. Carrie, you want to talk about this one a little bit?
Yeah, this one actually is already leased. So there's a tenant already living there. It's in Hammond, Indiana, a popular area that we're in. 3-bedroom, 1 bath. 1 bath is pretty common in this area. Going for $130,000, and the rent is around $1,350. So you're just above your 1% rent to value ratio, and you are net cash flowing an estimate of just under $300 at $285 a month. With your cash on cash return at 9%, it's a pretty solid deal.
Yeah, that is really good. So cash on cash is projected at 9% annually. And then the overall return on investment projected at 32% annually. If you see where my mouse is, I'm pointing to that. You can see all these performance at jasonhartman.com in the properties section. And again, if you want to know how to analyze every single number on this page and really be a great investor, go to jasonhartman.com. There is a free 27-minute video on the front page at jasonhartman.com that will go through every single number and how to really properly understand these numbers. In 27 minutes, if you do nothing else, that is the best investment education you'll ever get. It really, really teaches you how to read the performance. The other thing I do want to say is back in 2004, when I got into this business, remember, I was a traditional real estate agent for many years. I worked for Remax, for Century 21, and then I purchased a brokerage of my own. And then I sold it to Coldwell Banker 8 years later. Okay. When I was a traditional real estate agent, I saw people do a lot of crazy things that don't make any sense. Okay. We want you to do things that make sense, prudent income property investments that make sense the day you buy them. Okay. And in 27 minutes, you can get a really, really great education on property. Okay. And oh, by the way, Britt says, he's quoting me, nothing works in California. Yeah, sadly, it really doesn't. The government doesn't work in California. A lot of stuff doesn't work in California. And I hate to say that, by the way. You know, I loved living in California for decades. It's just really, it just doesn't work anymore in so many ways. Okay, and thank you. Okay, you're welcome. Yeah, glad I could answer your question. Now go refinance your mortgage, okay? And then look up my podcast on refi till you die, okay? Oh, here's a good question. Remember that promo code is REAL for $100 off our Meet the Masters tickets. Link at the bottom of the screen, jasonhartman.com/masters. And maybe here will be our last question and we'll wrap up. What do you think of investing in commercial real estate right now? Carrie, whenever I get those questions, I always love them because they don't they don't specifically address enough of the question, right? What is commercial real estate? Everybody throws that term around, and it's funny how they throw it around. I don't know what it means. Does it mean office properties? Does it mean retail properties? Does it mean industrial properties? Does it mean self-storage properties? Or does it mean apartment complexes? Because those are, even though they're housing, they're also commercial real estate. So the question is, what kind of commercial real estate? That's the first question. And then where? And then Carrie, you got another nice compliment here. Okay.
That's Ken. Ken's gone on a few mini property tours with me. Hey, Ken.
Yeah. I have not been paid for this endorsement. That's great. Cowboy Kent. But yeah, as far as the commercial property question, I would, mostly you're probably talking about retail or office. And I think it's going to be a long fall. And by the way, we've got a podcast episode coming up on that this week. I interviewed a fund manager that has a big commercial real estate fund. He was fascinating guy. And we talked for about 40 minutes about all these different segments of the commercial real estate market and all these different locations of commercial real estate around the country. But I think commercial real estate, mostly in terms of what people mean, warehouse real estate, I think will actually increase in demand. And I don't know much about that side of commercial real estate, so I'm not the best person to answer. But office properties and retail properties have a long, tough time ahead of them, unfortunately. And by the way, the retail apocalypse was already underway. It's been underway for years due to the internet, but this has only COVID and civil unrest has only accelerated that dramatically. Okay, so I would really just now talk about an asset class where you could wait. That would be the asset class where you could wait. Okay, I'd give it 2 or 3 years before we really know what's going on with especially the retail and industrial real estate market. Okay, so. Thanks. Appreciate all you do and offer. It's been fun playing. Hey, thanks, Kent. Appreciate that. And here's the follow-up question. Okay, no, I answered that one. Was that the follow-up question? Okay. Here's a new question here. Okay. Niv says, in single-family investments, the banks want you as the personal guarantor versus multi? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. So, yeah, you do personally guarantee the loan, but the reality is lenders almost never, in fact, I have never, ever in decades of doing this, heard of a residential lender trying to go after the borrower personally. They pretty much just look to the property as collateral for the debt obligation. And in with purchase money loans in almost every state, I believe. I'm not an attorney, so you may have to check this, but I believe it may be every state or almost every state. The money you borrow to purchase the property is a non-recourse loan. So with that, they can only go to the property. They can only look to the property for their collateral to repay the debt. But if you refinance that property, or you put a HELOC, a home equity line of credit on that property, that does in maybe every state, at least a lot of them I know, become a recourse loan where they can go after you. But again, the fact is, in practice, I can say personally, I've never ever heard of that happening. And I would love to hear a story of that happening, because usually the lender just won't bother. They'll just foreclose on the property if you don't pay the debt, and they'll liquidate it and move on. That's pretty much the way it goes. Okay. Thanks. Lots of good info. Our pleasure. Oh boy, the questions keep coming. You won't let us go, will you, folks? Okay, Cynthia, what's she saying? Carrie, want to get that
Oregon
one?
or Washington a good choice to invest?
Oh, Kristin, I muted you because I was hearing some feedback. By the way, if you want to talk, I'll unmute you, and I'll raise your hand. Well, since you live in Oregon, I'm going to say no, Kristin. What do you say?
I say absolutely not.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Just speak louder. Yeah, or come closer. Yeah.
No, I would not invest here.
Yeah.
It doesn't cash flow. The numbers don't work. I
So-
have my primary here because my family's here up there.
Yeah. So you like living in Portland, but you wouldn't invest there.
Actually, I'm considering relocating.
Yeah. Oh wow, great, good for you. Where are you considering relocating to?
Actually, Washington.
well, Washington, first of all, Oregon, the Pacific Northwest is beautiful. What a gorgeous area of the country. But at least in Washington, you have no state income tax.
Right. That's one of the reasons I'm doing it.
Yeah, so you can move to Vancouver, Washington, right on the border. You can shop in Oregon, pay no sales tax,
Right.
and pay income. Well, don't pay income tax. I really mean in Washington.
A lot of sense. Mm-hmm.
You got the best of both worlds there. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal for people. Okay, so here's another one for you. Should I refi a home paid for in a cyclical market like Washington, D.C. or Maryland suburbs and rent it or sell it, put money into linear markets? Well, Bryant, that is a great question. I think you know what I'm going to say already. Yeah, I'm going to say definitely pull your money out of those markets. Now, the question of do you refi or sell those properties? That's a good question. So I would have to know the value of those properties and the rental income. And if those are, properties that are over $250,000 in value, I would say almost always it's better to sell them because the rent to value ratio gets too out of whack. And you could buy two inexpensive properties through our network at jasonhartman.com that would make much more sense in terms of rental income for you. But if they're low price properties that have good rental income, even though I don't love those markets by any means, then you might keep the properties and just refinance them and then buy more rental properties in linear markets. Okay, so good question, Bryant, and reach out to our investment counselors for detail, more help. The podcast, we have a lot of resources, our YouTube channel, etc. for that. Okay. Luxury Glow. I have $200,000 in cash invested in real estate. I'm here in San Diego. Should I consider a single family to buy right now or wait? Well, I think you should buy good quality single family homes in linear markets. By the way, if you're new to our content, let me explain this because I didn't on this broadcast. There are three types of real estate markets in the entire world: linear markets, cyclical markets, and hybrid markets. All real estate markets can be categorized in linear, cyclical, or hybrid. So cyclical markets get all the attention. They're the trophy markets. They're the West Coast of the United States, South Florida, a little south of where I live. Okay, the expensive northeastern markets around the world. There are places like London, Paris, Dubai, Hong Kong. These are Sydney, Australia. Okay, is another one. So these are trophy markets. They're expensive. They don't make any sense for investment.
They're too expensive. You can't get good rent to value ratios in those markets. So those are fine places to live if you want to live there, but they're not places to invest. So you want to invest in linear markets where they've got inexpensive properties like the one we're still sharing the screen, like the one you see on the screen. Okay, this is a $130,000 house that rents for a projected, or no, this one's already leased. It rents for $13.50 per month, more than 1% of the value every month. That's a linear market. Don't expect a lot of appreciation. Linear means it just kind of chugs along and goes up slowly, whereas the cyclical markets go like a roller coaster, like that. Okay, so definitely linear markets are the best place.
Yeah, with that 200,000 in cash, I mean, you could get anywhere from 3 to 5 properties, cash flow around 1,500, 1,200, 1,500 a month. So. Yeah. Take into consideration those options too when you're looking at other markets.
You'll be much better off. Do not put that money in any California market. It's just too expensive. And the political climate in California, Oregon, and Washington is very disconcerting, to say the least. But hey, in the country it is too. So anyway, okay, we are really going to end this, folks. We'll give you 5 more minutes for the last few questions here, and then we're leaving. Join us next week for our virtual conference, Meet the Masters of Income Property. Carrie, you want to read this one?
Do you think the reason so many tenants have continued to pay rent is due to receiving stimulus and extra unemployment payments? Are you concerned about defaults if Congress doesn't extend stimulus?
Yeah, that's a great question, Rob. And yes, that is true. I think that the rent collection is better than it would be without a stimulus. Most of the rent collection problems you've heard about, and I've shared some graphs. I wish I had one handy. I'd show it to you. But I've shared some graphs on my podcast and YouTube channel about this. The real rent collection problems are in apartment buildings. It's not in single family homes very much. Okay, that's the first thing you want to know. But also, I think that the stimulus, it's not going to be the same stimulus because the one they're talking about now is the HEROES program versus the CARES program. And it's going to be passed in some shape or form. We don't know the details yet. I got a podcast coming up on that next week, by the way. I just interviewed an expert on that who was very interesting. But we live in a bailout culture, okay? I think we've all just come to expect that the central bankers, the Federal Reserve or other central banks around the world and governments around the world, they'll just come to the rescue. It's crazy. But it's too politically intolerable for anybody to not dole out the goodies. Philosophically, I don't agree with it, but it's just the way it is. Okay, we're going to have more programs. In fact, at our conference next week, I'm going to talk about what I see as the expansion of rental housing assistance and Section 8 becoming a much more substantial part of the economy. Philosophically, I don't like it, but as a landlord, I'm going to figure out a way to take advantage of it and make it work for me and make it work for my clients. Okay, so yeah, there'll just be more bailouts. You can almost take it to the bank. Yeah, that could be okay. You remember, you got some that's not far from where I live. You got some pretty bad areas in there, and in those small 8 to 12 unit apartments. You're going to have some pretty transient tenants in some of those, so be careful. Typically, those small apartments like that are kind of hard to manage from a distance. Remember, in an apartment like that, your tenants are talking to each other. That's a big difference in the dynamic versus a single family home. That's why the apartments are experiencing the rent strikes and the single family homes aren't. Look, you might own a whole bunch of single family homes in a small neighborhood, but your tenants don't know each other. Okay, in an apartment, they see each other every day and they start talking to each other and saying, hey, we should form a mutiny. Let's do a rent strike. We want the landlord to lower the rent or fix this, fix that. They gang up on you. Okay, in apartments, they can't do that in single family homes. Okay, so Carrie, you want to get that?
How much cash flow should we target per property? Do we get to choose to work with different advisors?
Yeah. Yes. So that was like, do you choose your investment counselor? Yes, basically. I mean, you'll be assigned one initially, but if you don't like them for some reason, everybody loves our investment counselors. Go back to the prior comments on the screen. Okay. But Carrie, would you say about $200 per month average is reasonable?
Yeah, you'll average around 200 a month anywhere, and then it obviously will fluctuate, but average 200.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. How about this one? Also from Dan.
Dan, is there a scheduled times when talks are happening for Meet the Masters? Are the sessions recorded and can be replayed at a later time?
Yeah, good question. So yes, we have a schedule that is not totally finalized yet. I can tell you that on Friday evening, Sharon Lechter, author of several of the Rich Dad books, and or co-author, I should say, and also Outwitting the Devil, she is speaking Friday evening right after our little cocktail reception, virtual cocktail reception. By the way, we're all going to have a special cocktail. Should I tell them the name?
I'm curious.
I'll tell them the name. It's called the Cash Flow Cocktail.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. Very creative, huh? Sharon Lechter will be kicking us off Friday night. Harry Dent will be kicking off Saturday morning. And then we've got a whole bunch of other speakers scheduled throughout the day, Saturday and Sunday. And you will be able to get the recordings during the checkout process. So when you go to jasonhartman.com/masters and you enter the shopping cart, you'll see that the recordings will be offered at a great special price for you. Okay. Carrie, you want to get that?
Thank you, Jason. What about the issue that banks allow you to take up to 10 single-family investment loans?
Yeah. Well, I think you're asking, they limit you. They limit you. Yeah. So if you're married and your spouse can qualify, Niv, then you can each get 10. Okay. So you can get up to 20. And then you have to look at other options. And Carrie or any of our other investment counselors can refer you to lending sources for portfolio lenders, commercial lenders. And, you know, those rates are pretty good. They're not as good as the regular Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, or what's called agency loans, but they're not bad. The rates are pretty darn good. Okay, so good stuff. Carrie?
I have a quadplex in Lake Worth. A lot of talking with tenants.
Does that mean, I wonder if that means that the tenants are talking together? Yeah, it looks like with this comment from the same person. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the tenants do talk with each other, and that's one thing we don't necessarily love. It's better when they're separate and they don't know they don't know who their neighbor's landlord is, or they're probably a homeowner next door. So good stuff. Okay, I think we can wrap it up. Yes, that's the limit. Oh, here's one. Oklahoma, yeah, you know, we've had some markets in Oklahoma City, and we've done okay there. It's not like our favorite, but it's okay. Carrie, you have a comment on that?
I think he got one here. I think he's going back to. We've been in and out. We have some new construction there. Some of the numbers, they're not as strong as other markets, but we can definitely put you in touch with some of those Oklahoma local market specialists.
Yeah. So just reach out to one of our investment counselors through jasonhartman.com, and we can help you. And David says, thanks for the great event. See you at Meet the Masters. MTM means Meet the Masters. So again, jasonhartman.com/masters, and $100 off with a promo code REAL, REAL, like real estate. And I hope you'll join us next weekend. Also Tuesday night, we have our bubble live stream presentation. So bring your bubble blowing, and we'll talk about all the asset bubbles that are forming in the economy. And we will do that Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific, right here, same bat channel. And then you've got the podcast available to you, the Creating Wealth Show, and of course our YouTube channel. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Kristin. I've unmuted you, by the way. Thank you so much. And Carrie, thank you. And it's been a great time this morning. And it's time to go have some lunch. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Jason.
Happy investing.